Ladies and gentlemen, today is October 1st, 2013, and this is the KNKL SHOW episode...
See now, that's 84, and 15 plus 2, 101.
101? Well, where did they all come from?
Yes, you heard that right, ladies and gentlemen. It is, in fact, 101, and hopefully that came through. Hopefully it wasn't like blaring your speakers out or too quiet that you couldn't even get the joke. But today we are going to be learning to be better artists, and we're going to be focusing on how to project the image that is from your mind onto the piece of paper, onto the monitor screen, or whatever artistic medium you're working with. But before we get into that, we need to take a stroll down the lovely lane as usual. And I did this, I think, last week. I showed these off, but I want to show them off again because they were that awesome. And I just love them. Love them! Especially this metal slug one. Iron Duck, gotta love all that stuff. Super Saiyan action going on here. And here's the new ones. We got some Ramona flowers. Gotta love that. Man, I still see faces from like this super, super old tutorial. I really need to do a new one. But I'm really happy to see that you guys are doing that and enjoying it and putting it to good use. And then we got sexy demonic elf lady, as well as this cool guy here. I like this a lot. Another good one from Pepe Jorgens. So thank you, as usual, to everyone who's been submitting your awesome artwork to the Facebook. And those of you who have not yet come out of your shells, please consider joining us. Join us, submit your art, and join the awesome community on the KNKL Facebook. All right. Yes. And today what we're going to be doing, we're going to be focusing on, is this cute little Yorl over here. This is Tristana, for those of you who don't know. It'd be crazy if you didn't know, because most of you know me from League of Legends. And I'll be talking to you today about how I got to this point. Because a lot of people have been asking, how do you do your sketches? What's your process with just getting the idea from your head onto the paper? And I'm very happy to demonstrate that to you today via time-lapse. Yay! Oh, yay! Okay, so check it out. So I'll just kind of be walking you across it, like basically what I'm doing as things pop up. Okay, so the first thing that I want to tell you guys about is, you notice how I drew this head here first. Okay, and the reason why I do this is because normally I say don't start with the head, right? But in this case, I think it's okay to, like, if you have a general idea of, oh, I think it'd be really cool to capture the face and just like the head at this angle. You know what I'm saying? Like you just feel like it's really going to push the emotion. And then what I did, as you'll notice, I just kind of quickly sketched in some quick lines just to get some emotion in there. And then I did this quick rendition of, right, the position and the pose that I wanted this character to be in. All right? So let's go ahead and continue. But what I always like to do is I don't like to stop with just one, right? Because sometimes you get a really good thing off the start, right off the bat. But oftentimes I usually like to explore it just a little bit further, right? Try out a couple more things. And that's why we got the crazy cat thing going on here with the newspaper. I don't know what that is. But needless to say, that one didn't work out too well. But at least we did it. So now what I'm doing here is I am now moving into kind of, basically, one thing I want to tell you guys about is, for those of you who have downloaded my brushes, for those of you watching on YouTube, you can check the description below. You can always download them. And I'm working with the chalk brush here. And this is something that I didn't use, this is something that I only recently picked up. And the reason why I like the chalk brush is because it allows you to very quickly, just sketch in not only lines, but you can make it really big, and you can do values. And I'll demonstrate that in just a moment too. But for now, let's just continue with the time lapse. So what I'm doing here is I'm kind of picking out some details in the face, and then I was like, okay, one more. I want to do one more sketch, one more pose for this character. So, because I just had the inspiration, right? So I very, very quickly just laid it down. And I started doing some details there. But again, when I finished it, I was like, maybe not. Let's go back to the original vision. So now what's really cool is, because I laid this out over here, because I set up the position for the character over here, now I can draw off of the head, right? As opposed to figuring out all those little details and trying to get the character to look like there's weight and action happening with them. If you have this right here, you can easily transfer this to that, right? Because the head is in the same spot, and then you can just draw the body off of the head in this case. So you could also call this Keenan's recommendation for drawing off of the head, right? If you like to draw faces first, draw the face, and then draw the body in a very, very quick style, much like this. then, you know, transfer that to the final drawing. So, oh, I actually really like that foot. The latest one, I'm probably actually going to go back to that. That was at 1 minute and 18 seconds. Because the current drawing, I'm kind of messing around with the feet and the legs and trying to make them look right. I really like the way that one looks. Maybe that's the one that I'm working with right now. I don't know. But anyway, as you can see, this is kind of like the line sculpting technique that I really like to do. And it works, again, really, really well with the chalk brush because you can just lay down, like for instance, this, okay, that was a prime example of it right there. You see how this is just like one big solid kind of brush stroke or chalk stroke? I go back in there and I kind of shave it away and I sculpt it into the line, into the form that I want it to be. And you can see me do that in just a moment, right there. See? So stuff like that I really like to use the chalk brush for. And I'm using it as both my brush as well as my eraser. I think this is a really cool way to just, I don't know, it just like gives you some awesome like texture and it allows you to almost like pull details out of the sketch that you want to see in the final piece. So, yes, and that makes us very, very happy. So, just doing some small things on the face there. And I think I'm probably going to be rounding it up here, finishing it off pretty soon. And then we're going to jump into the live drawing. Oh, here's me, again, using the crutch, the skill of the lasso tool in Photoshop and moving the feet around, seeing what I like, what I don't like, what I want to change, and all that good stuff. So that is where we are now, I believe. Whoa, excellent. Oh, but I redrew that foot. Oh. Well, it's a good thing I saved that on another layer, I believe. So, okay, so another thing that I want to talk to you guys about that you probably didn't pick up in the time lapse is something that I really think is important is to duplicate and kind of save layers as you go forward. So here's an example of that. See all these layers on the side right down here? These are all older renditions of the drawing because sometimes what happens is I'll really like something that I did in an older version of the drawing, but you know, obviously you can only go so far back on the history. Like if you redrew an entire leg, you know, you're not going to be able to go back in the history and go back to the old one. So instead what I do is I use the handy shortcut Control-J to simply duplicate the layer up, as you just saw, and now I have a duplicate of that layer. Now I can draw on whatever I want and not have it ruin the drawing, right? Because it's like, oh, well, I don't like that so much. I can go back to the old one. See? Tragedy averted. So, let me show you just the ones that I saved, okay? So this is one layer, right? And then I went a little bit further and drew the gun in. And then this one with the legs. I kind of like these legs a little bit more. I might move those back in. And here's the other thing, is it allows you to compare your current piece or your current sketch with an older version. And sometimes as you make changes, and you know, sometimes you'll just be able to compare to an older version and be like, I like that more. And then what you can do is you can just lasso that. You know, you can lasso these legs, say if you wanted that. Control C those, and then say you go to your latest drawing, and then, or not that one, I really hate that one. Those legs just did not work. And, oh, again, let's Control J, right? Control J to duplicate that layer up. Oh, but make sure you actually duplicate the entire layer. And you can just go ahead and delete these legs and say, yeah, I like those legs from earlier on. Let's go ahead and drop those in. Maybe I did that wrong. Okay, let's try that one more time. Okay, yeah, these legs. Okay, so make sure you actually have the proper layer selected. That also helps quite a bit, okay? Control C, go to your latest drawing, and Control V. Voila! You have legs again. And for some reason, it doesn't look as good on this one. I think it's because I moved her shoulder down. I think that was something I did. So the weight and kind of, the weight is displaced, so it looks like she's going to like topple over. Maybe that's why I didn't like those legs and I had to redraw them. So anyway, you can just delete it and you can have your old one. So yeah, let me show you guys a couple things that I really enjoy about the chalk brush, right? And it is this brush right here. It is this awesome brush where you can do stuff like this. You can make nice broad strokes, and it has all this cool little texture just like automatically in it, and it adds a lot of kind of like, just adds style and texture to your drawing. And again, sometimes like these little textures and things, it brings out character in your drawing, and it almost allows you to see the drawing within, right? It allows you to see the masterpiece within. Whereas if you're working with something like this is what I used to do. You know, just like with a regular hard brush, you lay this down, and it's like there's only so many ways that this can look, right? It's like, okay, it's either there or it's just kind of see-through, right? But there's no texture. There's no texture in this, right? And there's lots of texture in that, and that's what we like. So please do that. Another thing that I like about the chalk brush is that I just find it really handy for like these blush lines, right? You can press very, very lightly, and you can press very, very lightly, and you can just make like softer tones, and you can almost like say, okay, I want to do a rendition. Let me make sure this is duplicated up. Yep. I almost want to do a rendition and see what this thing would look like with values, right? With lighting. Let's play around with some lighting. So I just grab, you know, the dark color that I'm using, and this is why I really like it, because you can almost just be like, okay, well, I want the light to be, you know, on this side, right? Like almost like it's coming from over here. So you can very quickly just make a giant brush, and you can just go along the side of the character, and you can just very quickly shade it in and almost get like an idea of what the values are going to be on your character, right? And I really like doing stuff like that. And again, because it's all in its own layer, you don't have to worry about messing it up. You can always go back. So I really like doing stuff like that. It's like a really, really quick way to experiment with values and get what you want. And again, you can also erase values too. You can be like, okay, well, what about some reflected light coming in here? And you can start to do reflected light on the other side. And this is just a really good way to experiment, again, with values and figuring out how it's going to affect your character. So I think that's a really fun thing to do. And then when you're done, you can just delete it and start over again. So let's see. We've been going for about only 15 minutes. I think I'm actually gonna I'm gonna work on this live for just a few minutes, and in the meantime, I'll work on it for 5 minutes, and then we'll open up question catapults. How about that? So get your questions ready. Get them ready, because if you don't ask during the time allotted, you will be lost and forgotten forever until tomorrow, maybe. All right. So the next thing that I wanted to do is I kind of wanted to mess around with these legs a little bit. So you're probably going to be watching me just work on these legs. Because I just feel like the weight is distributed a little bit better on these legs up here, right? Because you got, you know, one thing that I really like to do is I almost drop like a line, like a plumb line from the back of the head down to the ground, right? And that's where the center of gravity is, the center of mass is. And if one foot is here and the other one is here, you know, there's balance between there. There's balance in all things there. But the problem that I'm having with this one is that, you know, a lot of like, okay, from the back of the head, if we drop it straight down, it's almost like right here, right? And one foot is back here and the other one is up here. And it feels like she's gonna fall over this way, in a way. But also at the same time is that maybe that's actually kind of cool, because having a character in an action pose where they're not completely centered, where their gravity is not completely centered. Think of a guy running, right? If you're drawing a guy running, you know, you don't draw him like this, right? You don't draw him running like that, right? If you really want to exaggerate it, he's sprinting forward like that, right? And again, the center of gravity is like way back, you know, here or something, right? And he's just lunging forward, and it has like so much more movement and style to it. So in this case, it might be a good thing. It might be a good thing. But let's go ahead and experiment with a couple more things as far as the legs go. And we need to go back. Okay, there we go. And another reason why I like to flip the canvas is because, again, it gives you fresh eyes. And I always say this. It gives you fresh eyes on the piece that you're working on. And it allows you to see all the little mistakes and just things that you might want to fix, especially in faces, I've noticed. Like, you can be working on a face for even 20 minutes. And you will see that face differently than somebody who literally just walks in the room and looks at it for the first time. They'll be like, oh, the nose is way too high, or the eyes, like, one's higher than the other, like, really weirdly, like, and you're like, what? You won't see it. You won't see it until you flip the canvas and you'll be like, whoa, what the heck? And then you can fix it. and then when you flip it back the other way, it looks even more beautiful. So try that out for yourself. Flip the canvas. I have mine set to a hotkey, but you can do it yourself by doing image, rotate canvas, and then flip canvas horizontal. And that does it for you. Okie dokie, out to checkies. Okay, so I'm trying to figure out exactly what I want to do with these feet. And you can watch me basically just lay these values in, and then I'll almost just erase and sculpt the lines into place. Into their proper places. Put them in their place. Alright. So, and for those of you who haven't checked out the Poppy fan art that I did, I don't know where the heck it is. This is kind of like a sequel to that. Now, whatever. It's on the Facebook. Go check it out. I posted a forum thread on the League of Legends forums about it, and people are responding really well to it. I'm getting a lot of talk going about Poppy and like what is she supposed to be, and talking about the potential that she has for like a visual update and like a remake in the game. So I think stuff like that is really cool, and I'm really happy to have maybe inspired some debate amongst the players. So, okay. So I think one thing that I want to do is that this foot is like slightly turned in a little bit too much. I really like it because it feels like there's a lot of weight on it, but I think I want to just like push it a little bit more forward so there's more depth on this. And again, notice how I just lassoed that and moved it up. And now watch. I'm going to take the chalk brush and I'm just going to erase that. And look at that. It's like created the rest of the boot, right? I didn't draw the boot. I drew the shape of the boot, right? And then I almost like erased it out. So it's kind of like that. It's thinking about values and almost sculpting lines. And I really wish you could do this like with pencil and paper in a way. And sometimes I feel like it's not fair, right? Because you can't do that in real life. But the other thing that I will say about working with physical media is that I think you have a little bit more control. You have way more control when you're working with a pencil that is literally in your hand and hitting the paper. Whereas this is a little bit more free-flowing, and you might as well take advantage of the freedom that you have to make as many mistakes, and then you have a Control-Z button. You know what I'm talking about? You know what I'm saying? Take advantage. Alright, so, that looks pretty good. Now again, this is where this comes in handy, because now we can look at this one, and we can compare to this one. Slight change, but makes all the difference. I actually like this one a little bit more. Yes. Let's draw her gauntlet, and in the meantime, I'm going to open up question catapults. Please catapult your questions over the castle walls, and I will send them back to you on a bed of rice. And then we will end episode 101. I was about to play the video clip again. Maybe I'll play it again at the end. Yes, questions, and then we're done. Okay, I need to draw her gauntlet. She's got some really cool gauntlets. And I have my little reference over here that can't necessarily show you. Actually, I can show you this. I can show you that. That's what I'm looking at. So I'm going to draw our little gauntlets, and we'll call it good. Again, duplicate it up, especially when you're going to be drawing over lines that were previously there. Okay, this gives you the freedom to just erase and just be as crazy as you dang well please. Alrighty, alrighty. Okay, so she's got these things going on. Oh yeah, I like that. I like it. Oh, and let me not cover up the chat so I can actually see any questions you have. You guys are a quiet audience today. No questions. I guess I just answered every single question you could ever have. And that is totally fine. Because I will finish up this gauntlet and then we are done. Okay, let's draw this. And then her hand. I really like the way I drew her hand here. So I'm going to try to replicate that. Even though most of her hand... Like, I thought about it, and she's got this little design that's kind of on her bazooka. But I thought, okay, well maybe there's like a handguard that she holds in there, and then that like sigil or that metallic piece almost becomes like a handguard, right, from all the shrapnel and explosive stuff that comes out the other end of this bazooka. And I thought that worked pretty well. So yeah, let's go ahead and just get that looking good. Good question coming in here from Mr. Sheep. He is asking, is it better to overlay colors over values or just paint on them directly? Here's the problem that I have with overlaying colors on values, is that it kind of makes the colors already kind of ugly, right? Especially if you're working with just black and white. Like, let's do an example. Let's do an example. Okay, so the reason why I don't like laying colors on an overlay or multiply or any of that stuff is because naturally it's just going to be like, okay, well, here's my red, right? Let's say I wanted to draw, well, or pink hair, right? Let's do Riot Girl Tristana. So I have this color on a multiply or an overlay. And the reason why I don't really like doing this is because, like, in here, like when it starts colliding with all the values, it already starts to kind of like desaturate them and make them into this like ugly, nasty color that nobody really wants to see. And while I think it might be a good starting place, a big thing that I want you guys to understand is that a big thing about color that I've started to notice is that when it goes into the shadows, it almost inevitably saturates. It almost inevitably saturates as it goes into the shadows. And this is something that you're just not going to get. I make a new layer over top of this. See, so this is not on multiply anymore, right? And I've taken this sort of more saturated red, and I'm going to kind of drop it into these areas, right? And this is something that you're just not going to get with overlaying colors onto values. It just doesn't work in my experience. But then again, it might work great for you, and if it does, I say keep rocking it. But I personally like creating just clean line art, setting up masks, right? For those of you who know, working on the comic and all that stuff. Set up clean line art, mask it, and then you can basically experiment with all the colors that you want. Experiment with all the colors and the hues and saturations. And don't necessarily just take the black and white values and slap colors over top of them, because I guarantee you, as long as you do that and nothing else, it's never going to look good. It just won't. It just won't! Okay. So, I have no idea what I just did, but that's okay. Alright, a couple more questions and then we're going to end the show. Let's get this epic outro music up here. Oh, and I should be on cam. Alright, oh, someone's asking a great question. He's talking about artists painting on a middle value background instead of white. Is this just personal preference? Yes, this is actually something that I'm doing myself. And the reason why I like doing this is because A, it's easier on the eyes, and B, it just kind of works really well. Like, especially like Riot or freaking Tristana has white hair, right? So if you want to have white hair on a white background, it's just not going to have the same amount of punch as if you have just a slightly grayer background and then you put white on top of it. It's going to make it look really bright, make it look really awesome. So that's why I like working on a softer or a mid-value background. It really is fun. It's just an awesome experiment, and I highly suggest you do it. All right. Rita is asking, or Rita is asking, when you design your characters like Emma and the others, how do you keep them within the comic's theme? And she's asking because she's making a few characters for a story, and one of them fit, but the other ones she's made have like 20 different versions, and they just won't fit within the design theme. Okay, Rita, or Rita. One of the biggest things that I had to figure out when I was starting up the designs for Emma was just what goes into making this style, right? And one of the things that I realized was, okay, I think a big thing is just kind of like how the faces and everything just kind of revolve around simplified shapes. Like I don't put the details in the ear. They're almost kind of like these elfish squared off ears, right? And that's something that is consistent throughout all of the characters. And I think that's a big thing that you want to keep in mind is, are one of the characters more detailed than the other? That could be a big problem that you might be having. If so, then you want to simplify, right? Make sure there's the same type of shape language. I'm sure you've heard people talk about those things, right? Shape languages. There's a lot of angles in Emma, but then there's also a lot of softer, kind of rounded things. But inevitably, the shoulders kind of come to these points. And I think that's kind of what defines a style for me. As well as, I think it's really, because, okay, so a big challenge that I had was, how do I make these adult characters look like they belong with the kids too, right? And not make it look like this is big eye anime over here, and then these, adults are like a completely different style. And again, I think it just has to do with, Nico kind of bridges the gap between Emma. She's got like the big anime eyes. Nico kind of has like slightly smaller but still bigger eyes. But they have like this squared off thing that's happening. And then that translates perfectly over to Tank and Clem. So I really think it just comes down to shape language and the way that you treat the level of detail in your characters. So try that out. See if that works out for you. And all that good stuff. All right, last question is coming in from Helgen Warfare, and he's asking, how do you do the shadow like you did for the Poppy art? Oh, good question. Okay, let me see if I can actually pull that up really quick, because I'll show you guys exactly how I did that. It's actually very easy. And then we'll end. Okay, so let's go ahead and pull up Poppy. Poppy. Come on. Okay, there we go. Okay, so for those of you who are wondering, this is the Poppy art, and I'm basically doing the sequel, Tristana, to this. And a lot of people have been asking how I do this shadow beneath them. It's actually quite simple. A little bit of cheating, but I'm going to show you exactly how I do it. Okay, so a big part of this is making sure that your character, right? Make sure that your character is set up so that it's all in one layer. Okay, so merge your character all into one layer, and that doesn't mean, like, if you have your character on layers, that doesn't mean you have to, like, commit and smash everything down. You can just duplicate the layer and then merge that one. Okay, but the point is that you just need to have your character on its own layer, and it needs to be flat. Okay? Then what I do is I basically just turn the lightness down all the way so that the character's black. Okay? And then what I do is I drop this behind the character. Okay? And then we use the magic that is known as Control-T, the transform tool, and then I grab this right here whilst holding the control button, click this little thing right here, and you drag it down like that. Okay? And then naturally see, oh, whoa, look at that. You can just deform the shadow to whatever you want it to be. And then notice how, like that foot needs to move up to that one. So you right click it and you hit warp. And you just kind of grab that little foot and move it up to there. Boom! Easy, right? Super easy. And then you can just take the opacity, kind of lower it down. And there you have a shadow. And then another thing that I did was I made a little quick mask or a masking layer. That's this little button right here. Why is Photoshop not in the screen like that anymore? Okay, this little button right here is your good friend. Go ahead and click that, and then it creates this little mask. And then what you're going to want to do is pull up a gradient that basically goes from black, and then it gradates to nothing. And then what happens is when you put this gradient over top of that shadow, okay, look at that. Now it fades off into nothingness. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you make shadows. All right, with that, we're going to end episode 101 of the KNKL Show. Thank you guys once again for joining me live on Twitch. And for those of you on YouTube, thumbs up if you like it, thumbs down if you don't. My name is Ken Lafferty. I'll see you guys tomorrow for Whatever Wednesday. Until then, enjoy this scene from 101 Dalmatians again, and I'll see you tomorrow. Oh. Until then, enjoy this scene from 101 Dalmatians, and I'll see you tomorrow.
Oh, let's see now. That's 84. And 15 plus 2, 101.
101? Well, where did they all come from?
The whole